Mate, I know you're wanting to attract attention and all that, but I'll be careful who are you, because from my angle, one of your arms looks longer than the other. Don't look right, mate. I'd go and just sit down. Just sit down on the curbside and wait for some attention. Welcome, folks, to this expose on how we can plan custom missions in the H145. There she is in all her glory alongside an American ambulance. There is something you can do about that if you're here in the UK, but that's a little bit more advanced. We won't be spending much of our time on that, but the main thing is if you do want to whiz along to the end, I can show you how to incorporate all these kinds of additional scenery objects. Is that a bush trucker trial star there or something? You never know, all kinds of things pop their way in here. And yeah, anyone fancy a little bit of camping and a whole array of people to make your creations that little bit more lifelike? There you go. Civilian passengers. Hello, how you doing? Unfortunately, there's another one at the back there waving. I reckon if we got enough people together, we might be able to do the YMCA. Now, where's a plumber? Anyone seen a plumber? Or anyone who's got kind of a feather headdress would do. No feather headdresses? Okay, well, we might have to make do. Welcome to the Flying Doctor channel. Let's geek into it. Greetings, folks. Now, this is one tutorial walkthrough I have been really excited to get into, having looked at all of the mission packs available for the H145 and flown a good number of them to get some kind of understanding about functionality and where we are, which is in a pretty good place for what is effectively a open source almost aspect of the sim, with lots of people contributing. If you've not joined Discord, can I encourage you to do so? You'll find High Performance Group there. There are some really helpful folks there that can assist you finding your way through. I'm not going to say a huge amount about how to set up the Hype Operations Center. It's fairly straightforward. When you load the software, you'll find that you get an invitation to show where your community location is for your Microsoft Flight Simulator folder, and you get an opportunity to manage your installation. You pop in the key code for your base pack and your action pack, and then everything else pretty much happens automatically. The great thing is that you can update within the H145. So as I've said before, no faffing about updating by unzipping folders, removing old folders, putting the new installation into your community folder itself, apart from when it comes to PMS 50, which is something else, because there's not the same functionality there, just to press a button and for it to automatically happen. But it just will tell you that if your PMS 50 GTN 750 needs an update, you just need to do that manually, but we're not going to cover that here. So where to next? Well, I'm going to start in the place. It doesn't necessarily make common sense to start in this place, but you'll see why it makes sense to start here, and then we'll move back to this afterwards. Now, the important thing is that when you save a new custom mission, you need to save it in a particular folder, and you can see I've got some mission packs down here. So mission packs are essentially folders that exist within the H145 structure or your community folder, from which the H145 draws and indexes missions. So they go from here on the left to effectively here on the right. And you can see on the right hand side here the missions that are already installed, because they're part of what H145 offers. For example, we looked at HPG missions cargo, didn't we? And we had the pick up sling cargo option. We've also looked at firefighter missions, and we did the Santa Clarita Golden State Freeway Wildfire, which was one of these many options that was available in the library tab. Okay, and what we're going to do is that we are going to create our own mission. We're going to press an update here to make sure the mission's indexed, and then it will appear when we open our sim. Okay, that's the theory. This is, however, a work in progress, but I have every expectation that things have moved forward. Lots of chatter about this, lots of help being given on Discord, as I say. So the first thing is to know where your mission pack needs to go and the folder structure. And the first thing that you need to do is to find your Microsoft Flight Simulator community folder. Double click on that and you will find, of course, within the folders all of your add-ons that you have. I have them as shortcuts here because I use add-ons linker. So the little blue arrows are shortcuts, and then those that don't have blue arrows are installed directly into the community folder. And what you are looking to do is to create a folder, and if I work from the manual, I would suggest it was my-h145-missions. Okay, so there's my folder. It's my h145 missions, my-h145-mission folder. And you create that folder, and inside it you create a folder called, and this is really important, HPG Mission, all one word, HPG Mission. Now I've actually got a folder named HPG Mission /old or -old, and if you click on that you'll find all of these. They're JSON files. You'll find a whole range of files here. These are missions that I've created before, but I've hived them away in an old folder because the H15 will not see HPG Mission -old. It'll just see what's in HPG Mission, and that is blank at the moment. And we're going to save to this folder, and we're going to update the index, and the index will read what is going on in this folder. So if we come back out of there, well, once you've created that folder, you are ready to go, or those two folders, you're ready to go. So let's just look at how we would go about setting up a custom mission. On the left hand side here, towards the bottom of your Hype Operations Center are some tabs. You want to click on Mission Editor, click there, and you'll find some options under My Scenarios and Create New Scenarios. And don't forget that the scenario you create is only going to work in the appropriate variant. So there's no point in putting together, say, a firefighter mission and thinking you can fly it in HEMS or in military operations. That will not work. That's the first thing to spot. It might seem obvious, but it's easy to overlook. You think, why is my custom mission not appearing in my library? Well, you're in the wrong variant of the aircraft. Let's start with just a simple transport mission involving flying to a pickup area, loading the passengers, taking them somewhere else, and then returning to base. So here at the top here, I click on Plan Scenario. Don't be surprised that the map is centered on Los Angeles. That is pretty easy to sort out. But as for me, I prefer to plan my missions around the UK. That's partly because I know where the features are and the helipads are. So I've just zoomed into London. Just a simple click and drag with your left mouse button and a scroll to scroll into the map itself. If you just look to top left here, you can see that the map is available in this form, but also satellite form as well. If you click on satellite, well, I find that's really helpful, and you can zoom in and you can see some of the features so much more clearly. And as you'll see, we'll use a mixture of the two. So what interests me is I simply want to plan a pickup travelling from London City Airport. There it is. I know it's there. And I can zoom right in on the map, and I can even see the parking area for the aircraft. Of course, I can go into satellite and see it even clearer as well. So I know that these areas here, generally this tends to be free, but the sim will make sure it's free, but it enables me to add a degree of realism. Now the first thing I'm going to invite you to do, because I've made this mistake many times myself, is to complete the scenario title here. And do make sure it's something specific that will clearly show on the library options in your tablet under the mission heading. it's really easy to, I've confused myself before this way. So I'm going to put in transport, London City, and I don't know where we're going to go, but I can change that later. But that's the first thing I'll say, because that's easily overlooked when we do that. And then I invite you just to turn to have a look at the right hand side here, and you'll see 3 red sections. Now the red's saying that this mission cannot go ahead unless all of these are complete. So simplest, we need a pickup zone, a drop-off zone, and a start location. That's because the mission can end with just a drop-off zone if we want. How do we populate these? Well, if you look to the center of the screen here, you've got really clear descriptions, so we can select to move on the map. We can see that bounded in blue there, just using our left mouse button. We've learned that already. We can put a start location in here. So I'm going to put my start location just where this blue marker is that's appeared. As soon as I've clicked on start location, there we are, and you'll see an H appear. And if you notice on the right hand side, that start location has now gone blue. It says no additional properties. We'll talk more about that later. Then we need to find a pickup zone. So I wonder where I'm going to pick up from. Well, whilst I am ambitious, for the sake of simply demonstrating what's going to happen, I'm going to pick somewhere fairly easy. It can be anywhere that you're able to land. And so let's just have a look here to the west of London and see where we might be able to pick up from. And I can see a park here, or an area of green, the other side of the Thames barrier. So we might have asked some people just to group themselves here. So what we're going to do is, in this green area here, we're going to pop in a pickup zone. And you can see what I need to do is to click on pick up zone, and then once again click here. Now when I clicked it, I've clicked it, taken my left hand finger off the mouse, and I can make that a nice wide area. So that's the area that I'm going to be landing in. So if I click there we are, and you'll see that also got a radius here, 83 meters radius, which is quite generous. If you look to the right hand side, you can see pickup zone has now gone blue. But also we've got this this kind of curious no data query random point. Well, what's that saying? It's saying that this is just a random point on the map. I haven't asked for any data about what else might be available. I'm going to show you how to use this tool because it's quite a nifty tool. I think I'm using it the right way. This is how I use it anyway. Okay, so we've established a wide area from which we might be able to pick up. Now I know that that area is too small to have any roads. We might have a track near it, but if I click on no data query random point, just gone to select to move again, so there we are, and I've then can see that there are 2 entries: data query find all pick 1 or pick closest. Okay, now what I could do here, if it's find all pick 1, I could click on that, and then it allows me to try and find any, for example, helipads here, hospital helipads nearby. Well, I think it's within this circle that we've just created, or it's nearby helipads, or as you can see, airports, roads, track, primary, highway, all classes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one of these. I'm going to click on nearby roads bracket track. So we're looking for tracks that we might be able to connect with. So if I click on there and then I press test query, I'm not surprised it says found no results there. But if I widen this circle, so I'm going back to the circle, which is a select and move, I haven't changed anything. If I widen this now and say I'm interested in nearby tracks, then test the query again, and look, I found 1 result. Now it's come in a rather strange place, and I don't know why it's quite managed to find it there. But if you notice on the map, if I zoom in here, that I found it actually looks like an all-weather pitch. So it's saying, I'm not sure how this comes out as a track, but that is accessible. But what that's letting you do is find reasonable place where you might be able to land the helicopter, say nearby a track. And we'll have a look, if I perhaps have a look at another option. So I'm not sure that I've got any vineyards around here or landfills, but it may well be that we might find something. Let's have a look at, well, I'm not sure about landfills, to be honest. Let's have a look at road intersections. So I click on that, press test query, and it's found 28 results. Now you can see all over the map here, if I zoom right in, I think that you can see them. Well, unfortunately they're not changing size, but I'm circling them here. All over the map here are road intersections. So if I was wanting to set out a mission with a pickup and I was looking to find, for example, where there might be a road intersection or a major area that I could do that pickup from, then I would simply make sure that the pickup zone was near that. Now, here's the nifty thing. I can close down by moving back to the pickup area. I can close down the width of the pickup area, and I can sort of say, well, if I kind of move to there and center the map round about there, I'm near this pickup area of road intersections here. So it's a little bit of a nifty tool. It's a bit easier when it comes to, for example, picking up from a helipad. I'll demonstrate that one as well. This could be hilarious, and it may well take time because, well, I'm sure there are going to be more helipads available in London, but when I'm planning missions, I often find that's not the case. So we're going to pick up, say, from a helipad. So what I'm going to do is go back here, widen the pickup area. There we are, nice and wide. We're talking 5 kilometers wide here. This is the way I use the tool. It might not be right, but nonetheless, I find this helpful. And then we go to click on data query and nearby helipads, except hospital. Let's try that and test the query. Are we going to find anything? Found 2 results. Now, whether I like them or not is kind of irrelevant, but there's 2 helipads here if I was wanting to plan a pickup. Okay, you can see on the map here, there's one on the right hand side here and there's one on the left hand side here. What's striking me is that's outside the zone. But what that means is, say that if I was thinking, well, we'll have a mission and I'll pick up from a helipad, this one here looks reasonable. So what do? Go down to and reduce the size of the pickup zone, move the pickup zone to the center of the helipad, reduce down the size, there we are, of the radius. There we go. And that is that when we fly into there, into that circle, the sim will read that we've arrived at our first kind of pickup zone. So does that make sense? It's taken me a while, folks, to kind of get my head around that. I think that's how you can use the map software, but I found that was particularly helpful. So we need a drop-off zone, don't we? So I'm thinking, where might I drop off now? And I'm thinking, why not the garden of Buckingham Palace, which I know where that is. There's Buckingham Palace there. It's unmistakable because of the Mall coming down here. That's the Mall, and this kind of triangular area here. That's Buckingham Palace there. But we can put ourselves in the grounds of Buckingham Palace. Okay, there's the lake at the back, and we can simply put a drop-off zone down. So we click there for a drop-off zone. There we go, and we can widen that drop-off zone as well. I think that's what's happening in the H145, is that if you fly anywhere within that zone and land, it knows that you've arrived. Okay, if you're flying outside that zone, it won't work. And the other thing you need to do is to switch the engines to idle. Okay, so we now have all of these areas, or on the right hand side, all of these required areas. They are now light blue and we're ready to go. Okay, so it's London City, isn't it, to Heliport to Palace. Okay, notice that I'm writing that in the scenario title. That will become crucial later. And that will give us a nice journey across London, past the Houses of Parliament and the Millennium Wheel, and into Buckingham Palace itself. So now we go to the right hand side and we're ready, we're all clear here, and save changes. Okay, then that's not in itself enough in itself. That will just save this mission to Hype Operation Center, but we need to save it into the library in the aircraft. Then click on Export from Microsoft Flight Simulator, and then you'll find that this is automatically opened out. You might need to find it, but if you remember, we go back to our community folder. We are looking for My H145 Missions, and that folder is here for me. Click on that, and we are looking for HPG Mission. Click on that, and then we type our file name in. Now this is where it doesn't really matter what the file name is. This is purely internal, you won't see it, but I am going to still label it something that resembles the mission itself. So I'm going to do London I'll just write London Transport EGLC to Palace, and it's saving. It will save it as a JSON file. So we save that there. Okay, that has gone now. And then if I open export for Microsoft Flight Simulator, we should see it there. There we are, so we know it's there. I'm just going to cancel that, okay, and go back to home. Just wait a couple of seconds and it will refresh for you. Now we're not there yet, because what we need to do is to press update here on the index missions, and when we press update we should see that the name of our mission that we've just put in, not saved as a file name but saved under the label at the top of the mission editor page, that will appear down here on this top section. So click update, there we go. Notice how it says Transport London City Heliport Palace. Okay, now that mission, it's now saved into the H145. So here we are, we're in London City Airport. Just have a quick look around. Nice and dark for us, but we're not really interested in any of this. We're just going to come into here, and I'll just give you a closer look at the tablet, and we're going to move in and look at the maps and mission section. There we are. I would prefer it with map orientation north. We go to mission library, and you'll see that our entry is there: Transport London City Heliport and to Palace. So we can have a look at this mission in depth, but it's no different from what I've shown before on the previous examples. You would fly to the heliport first, you would land, you would put your engines to idle, it would load your passengers, and then you would move on to Buckingham Palace, and you would get the route description before. We're going to load the mission so we can see the first half. So it's setting up the mission, as you can see just here. And never mind that, if I just click here, I'm getting an instruction to fly to the pickup area. And you can see if we zoom out, there we go, for the first part of our mission. If we landed there, it would then tell us that we need to move on. And I'll do that for you and come right back once we're over the destination. Okay, here, yeah, flying to the pickup area. You can just see that's the message that I've got. As you can see, the aircraft there. Okay, just beginning to, well, just landing here at Falcon Heliport. Didn't quite know what this was about, but we'll just lower the aircraft here. You can see, if you might spot, I don't know how good your reading is, probably not able to read at this kind of, I'll show you in a second, this kind of distance away from the tablet, but if I just land here, there we go, and on the tablet it says land and place engines to idle, and so you'll be familiar with that. So we'll do this, and then once we've done that, the passengers will come through, and once that's lowered, we should see wait for loading. You can just see there, just coming up on the bottom of the tablet. So we should expect our passengers to load. Okay, now we've got fly to the drop-off area, and once again you can see this route just emerging there. So there's our destination, there's our start where we are, so that's straightforward. Okay, here we are, Buckingham Palace right in front of us. Looking to move to the rear of the palace. So we should now be in the drop-off area, and we set the engines to idle. I'll try this because I'm not particularly close to the drop-off area. I noticed there. I'm just wondering if this is close enough, but we'll try setting our engines to idle first. There we go. And just see what happens here. Now wait for unloading. So even though, yes, it didn't quite appear, we are unloading right now. Okay, so that's the end of that mission then. And may I find that we can add the mission, we can submit the report, so press submit report and it should appear. A little bit of work I think needed in the Hype Operations Centre so that the missions are properly populated at the end, but nonetheless, yeah, mission complete. And effectively, other scenarios are a variation of this with options for more creativity. Military operations is relatively straightforward, much the same with civilian and VIP transport. There doesn't appear to be any options for moving a load or a cargo, unless it's obviously a cargo within the helicopter rather than on the wire, so to speak. HEMS Medical Services, will highlight one of those. It's probably the best way of showing all of the options. Aerial firefighting, we can look at that, but we've done enough of the firefighting missions to see how they operate. Offshore is one of the areas that I still think needs some work, because when it comes to planning the scenario, it's difficult to find, or impossible to find, the offshore locations. Now, having said that, there's another way to offshore, but if you look at the tutorial that I've done for the offshore variant, you can see how you can access that differently by clicking on the map. But it's not quite working in terms of using the creating the scenario in the operations center at the moment. But let's just have a look at creating a street accident zone and a hospital and flying to a hospital zone. We click on plan scenario here. Notice at the top that we've got this previous scenario we created is saved here, so we can go back and edit it. Okay, so I have relabeled my scenario title here, A205/A206 accident. I have kept to the same start location. You can see that's here. And I have no accident zone. The reason I said A205, A206 is because I happen to know where that is, and it's really close to the airport, so I can trial it out. There's the A205, that's this John Wilson Street down here. From the Woolwich Ferry South Pier, it intersects on a roundabout with the A206. So I'm going to go right in here, and I'm going to select this as my accident zone. Okay. And I'm going to assume that I can land the helicopter somewhere in this place. Well, the roundabout might be the clue, but nice and wide there. Okay, and then I need to find a hospital locally. Now this is where I'm a bit lost, so I'm going to click on hospital zone. I'm going to move the map much closer into central London, where I think I might stand the chance of being able to locate a hospital helipad. I'm actually going into Elephant and Castle. This is going to sound bizarre for some of our viewers in distant countries. Elephant and Castle, and I'm going to create a really big hospital zone, but that's because I'm using it to search for a hospital in the first place. So I'm going to click on that, and then the data query opens up. No data query random point. We don't want that. We want to find all, pick one, and then we want the Helipad Hospital. So we're going to test that query, give it a couple of seconds, and it's found 2 results. One down here, which is near Denmark Hill, and we can see that it's actually, yes, that's correct, it's arrived. If I zoom in there and I move to satellite, you can actually see the helipad there, and we can tell what hospital that is moving out. It's called King's College Hospital. So there we go. So we have found a helipad there. It's also found a helipad nearby up here in Whitechapel, which is the Royal London Hospital. So another local helipad. So it's actually found it outside of the hospital zone. But hey, I'm not complaining as well. What I'm thinking is that actually which one of these would be quicker to get to. If we're moving from just south of the river here, it doesn't really matter, but the one that I am more familiar with is the one to the south. So what I'm going to do is just select and move the hospital zone, or actually I can firstly change the diameter by moving to the edge, clicking and pulling in, and then I can actually move by selecting and move and clicking on the center, so I can move it right into the heart of the helipad there. So there we are. Now we want it obviously to be closer than that. I'm quite confident that it is indeed there, so I can just move that in a little bit more. Right, but effectively what I think this means is that if we struggle to land on the helipad there, but we're able to land somewhere else, once we have set down, the H145 will recognise that we've completed that part of the mission. So then we need to save these changes. So click on Save Changes. Notice that we've got 3 blues here. And then that's not good enough because that's just saved into the scenario editor, the mission, for allowing us to edit it later. We need to export for Microsoft Flight Simulator. If we go here, now here is the JSON that I developed earlier, but I'm just going to delete that. Don't worry about that because we're going to save it as M25 accident.json. That's following on from what we'd saved as before, but we can save it under any file name that we want. So let's go back to the home page and just see. It'll give a couple of seconds. If this is highlighted, there we are. If you can get it highlighted when it says update, we should find it will change this previous entry. Don't worry about the fact. So it says A205, A206 accident, which is what we were after as before. If you noticed, I'd copied over something else. As long as you label it as exactly what the accident is you're visiting, that's what's going to appear. You can save it under any file name, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so let's just restart our sim and see where we're up to when we sit at London City Airport. So here we are, can't help, sorry, it just looks gorgeous, doesn't it, at a distance. There we are. So we're going to jump back in and just see exactly what is happening here. Okay, clicking on Maps and Missions, clicking on the Mission Library. Notice we've got the A205, A206 accident. Notice also that this is only appearing in the HEMS variant. We haven't got the previous mission that we'd saved that is actually in the index. That's because we're not in the right variant for it. If we wanted just the simple transport mission, we needed to go and get into the civilian or the military variant. Click on A205, A206 accident, which is what we labelled the custom mission as, and it's setting up the mission. We can click on close for a second. I want to be north here so I can see what's going on. It's saying fly to the accident scene. We'll just give it a couple of seconds and it will do that. But anyway, so let's just fly around here and see where we are. We'll also see the flare that's there, indicating where we need to land. Helpful to see that there. Right, so now we're at the scene. We'll try and switch the engines off to idle. Doesn't always say to do that, but that usually does the trick. Yeah, doors opening. Pilot's getting out. patient's just been loaded back in, as you can see. See how long it takes. So we get the signal to take off, which is pretty much instant fly to the hospital. So off we go. So let's just get rid of the casualty then. And yes, there were no other problems there. The mission finished as usual with an opportunity to save a record to the Hype Performance group, as in the completed mission section here. However, just to let you know that I'm finding that as a little bit unreliable at the moment. I've got an hour ago I managed to record one, but sometimes they've not always recorded, so a little bit more work to be done on that. I'm sure that will follow through. On the mission editor, just to say a couple more things. Obviously, you've got the option, you could see it in the tablet there, the option to use the hoist, and I've just opted not to use that here. I found that the setting, if it was set to auto, was fine as soon as you were flying inside the zone. In fact, the crew were getting out of the aircraft. But you may well, that's something that you may well want to play an experiment with yourself. Firefighting, I don't really feel the need to. I've had a look at these. Yes, works really, really well. But don't forget that you've got some of the firefighting options coming with just by clicking on the map as well. Offshore, just to mention that yes, offshore remains a problem in that it's difficult to see any landing sites for offshore using the map. That is one particular weakness if we were to plan this scenario, and wherever we went, if we were to sort of zoom in, well, we do happen to know that we've got offshore facilities away from the coast of Holland here, for example, and you would be expecting to see these, but there's nothing on the maps whatsoever. There's some wind farm areas, so for example, Golapa wind farm here, but even if I go onto satellite, I think I'll struggle to see them. Yeah, there we are. So you've not got a way in which you can manage those and see what's happening there. However, you are able to venture into those options using the map, particularly if you've got Orbix's North Sea package that includes wind farms, oil rigs, gas terminals, which is, it's actually not produced by Orbix, it's produced by Aerosoft but sold by Orbix, and that is a worthwhile investment. Just a final note that if I click on mission content, I seem to be able to see a list of what I suspect is available to the Hype Operations Centre, resources from which it can plan missions, or you can draw on these resources to plan missions. So some of the objects here we've sort of seen before. I hadn't mentioned that, and I'll just talk to that later about. So these are additional objects that you can lay down, static objects that can give your mission a little bit more excitement. You can also see it's drawing from data queries here. We've looked at that before. So I'm not quite sure what this means. I need to just unpack that a little bit more. But I think the most important thing is to say that when you create a mission, if I go back to this A205, A206 accident here, when it comes to the accident site, notice how difficult it is to see the accident site actually. When it comes to zooming into the accident site, I can augment this by clicking on other objects. There's a range of objects that are available here that I can click on to augment the scene. Now it just happens that we've created our accident for itself, a random choice of accident we had on here, but if we right clicked we could be more specific, so car crash model 3, and it would do that. But also it would allow you, if you click on other objects, to place other objects there. So you can place visible markers there, red, orange, green, and mark a helicopter landing site marker to make things a little bit easier. You could even place all kinds of human beings, as well as policemen, civilian, and policewomen, crews, and also you've got the opportunity to lay down other vehicles as well. So you can put down ambulance, fire trucks. The fire trucks is a nod really, because we wouldn't use in the UK the term fire truck, we would use fire engine. These are kind of American designs, but it is possible if you go to Flight Sim TO to pick up some UK models that get incorporated into Hype Operations Center. It's just a folder that you unzip and put in the community folder, and the H145 is able to pick up on those. You can't just use standard Microsoft Flight Simulator objects. No, that's not how the Operations Center operates in sort of presenting these static objects. But you can, I'll put it in a link in the description. There are a range of UK objects if you're looking for that kind of realism. So yes, and the way that you place these objects, if I want a ambulance, is to click on the ambulance and just pop it down there. And if I want to put in a fire truck, click that there, police. I'm just scrolling down, I'm having them all around the roundabout. But you'll notice they add here to the right, and you can include things like having the lights flashing or the lights off. You can change the direction in which the object is facing. To some level of sophistication there, you could really create a scene if you wanted to go to town where everything was accurately placed. All kinds of other exciting options that you're able to place there. Anyway, folks, I just pray that that's helpful for you, and it's really good to be able to support people. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to subscribe. It does encourage me, and it helps build our community moving on. If you've got any comments, pop them in the comment section. I'll do my best to respond to them. In the meanwhile, take care and stay safe.